You may have noticed that I've been referring to your future role as a real estate salesperson and a real estate agent interchangeably. For the purposes of a license, your official title will be real estate salesperson. However, you will be an agent. And while, in real estate, it's common phrasing to use the term agent to distinguish from broker, the fact is that brokers are agents as well. In this lesson, we'll take a closer look at what exactly being an agent means. To be called an agent refers to a relationship. This relationship is called agency. Agency is the relationship between what is referred to as the principal and the agent. The principal employs the agent, and the agent carries out certain specified actions in dealing with a third party on behalf of the principal who has employed them. The principal is not an employer in the traditional sense, certainly not in the way that the IRS would define an employer. The principal doesn't owe the agent any of the federally or state-mandated benefits that most employers are required to provide employees. This is why the principal is often called a client in real estate. The principal might be the buyer or seller who the agent is representing. The principal authorizes the agent to represent them to other people in working on a business transaction. The agent enters into an understanding with the principal. This is a contractual agreement, either formally, in writing, or more informally, orally. The relationship may even be established simply by implication. The agent agrees to represent the principal in a particular matter, such as the buying or selling of a home. And in so agreeing, the agent consents not only to represent the principal when dealing with any third parties, but also always protect and serve the best interests of the principal. Now let's take a closer look at how the different roles play out in agency relationships. The agent is the person who has agreed to represent the principal. As we discussed previously in how people are paid in real estate, it is always the broker who is in a contractual agreement with the client. Just as only the broker can be paid by the client, it is the broker who enters into the agency agreement with the client. The broker then becomes the agent and the client becomes the principal. If the client is a seller, then when the broker becomes their agent, they are agreeing to represent them and to loyally serve all of their needs as best they can in selling their home. There is also a sub-agent that is possible in agency relationship. When a broker becomes an agent to a principal, they have been given the authority to represent the principal to best conduct the relevant transactions. This authorization allows them to confer the same powers they have received from the principal in order to represent them onto another person, the sub-agent, so that the sub-agent may also work to best serve the interests of the principal. Even though it is the agent who tasks the sub-agent with the responsibilities of serving the principal in the business at hand, the sub-agent is always representing the best interests of the principal or client, just as is the agent or broker. If the sub-agent comes across an instance where they must make a choice, and one option would be most beneficial to the agent they are working under, while the other would be most beneficial to the client, they must always choose the option that best serves the client. We will discuss this concept more in a later lesson. As you have likely guessed, you, the real estate salesperson, are the most common sub-agent in the real estate agency relationship. It's important to understand this because it can sometimes get confusing. In fact, As a subagent, you are always working first and foremost for the principal and not for the agent/broker. Again, the topic of how important it is to accurately put business loyalty in the right place and how to navigate what can sometimes be confusing situations will be further explored when we talk about fiduciary responsibility. But there's also one other player in the world of agency relationships, the third party. The agent has been hired to represent the principal to a third party, and in real estate, we usually call this third party the customer. If the principal is the seller of the house, then the customers are any potential buyers, including the person who ends up buying the home. Again, the most important part of the agency relationship when it comes to the customer is that the loyalty of the agent must always be to the principal and not to the customer. And that's where things can become most confusing. A good salesperson will always be helpful and truthful in working with customers. And while they must never forget that they are representing their principal, it can be easy for the customer to become confused that the salesperson is not putting their needs first. Depending on which state you practice in, there may be laws stating that you are required to disclose in writing who the principal is and where your loyalty lies. Even in states that do not require this, there are agencies that choose to use signed forms so that the customer understands there is not an agency relationship making them a principal. As stated previously, an agency relationship can be established based on implication and making sure in writing that the customer understands that they do not have the benefit of this relationship. This can be protection in the event of a lawsuit. It's also worth mentioning that some states do allow for dual agency, where a single person is allowed to serve the interests of both a buyer and seller.